WWE over the course of their history have had a lot of different storylines, good ones, bad ones, and then there are those that are unresolved, unspoken, or just flat out abandoned. We saw a lot of that in the final few years of the 2010s where things would be introduced and then they would hit the neuralizer moments after. What was in the lockbox, who threw the pie, what was Corey Graves plotting against Kurt Angle. Recently, WWE has gotten back into this habit where the payoffs are next to non-existent. Big angles, little teases, storylines that have gone on for months, only to vanish into thin air or the follow-ups be exceptionally poor. What made WWE successful in that 2-ish year window where they were rightfully getting their flowers was having the patience to introduce something and striking while the iron was hot, giving the audience a resolution. But when you get away from what made you successful, that's when you get into trouble, and nowadays they're just playing it by day, dipping and dodging in and out of storylines, introducing character arcs, teasing matches, and just letting them fizzle out, assuming no one will remember. They've also gotten into over-marination territory where something goes on for so long to the point where the audience, instead of being excited, just shares this collective opinion of let's just get it over with. This is WWE and the Tease to nowhere.
Listen, he's gonna do it, he's gonna do it.
Thank you!
This is where we saw the earliest warning signs. Chad Gable, as we all know, is a very good professional wrestler that objectively hasn't had as many breaks to show that off in WWE as much as he should. There was a storyline back in 2017 where it seemed like a slam dunk for him to be Kurt Angle's long lost son because the parallels were uncanny. Then he had the whole Shorty Gable thing where he dressed up like Buzz Lightyear and was given a terrible name straight from a SoundCloud rapper name generator. In 2023, the G might as well have stood for Gunther because that's the man he had a target on, the reigning Intercontinental Champion, this unbeatable force, and Paul George couldn't throw up a better lob in his prime. The perfect David versus Goliath storyline. He wins a fatal 4-way match and becomes the #1 contender, challenging for the championship 2 weeks later. He earns this opportunity in his hometown of Minneapolis, no less. Then by countout, he becomes the first person to put an L next to Gunther's name. So they continue the storyline. In September, the Honky Tonk Man's record of 454 days is on the verge of being broken, and so Gable wants to not only take the championship, but make sure that his opponent doesn't have the satisfaction of getting his name in the record books. These two square off in an amazing Raw main event. Gable digs as deep as he possibly can, but he just can't get it done. It's such an emotional loss that Chad's daughter is at ringside and she's crying because her dad couldn't do it. Gunther made this man's daughter shed tears. He gets to celebrate becoming the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion in history, saying that he's running out of competition, and that's when Gable comes out and he says that he's going to avenge that night. He tells him that Gunther lit a fire within him that's not going to burn out until he makes this whole thing right, and he swears to God he will win the championship and his daughter will walk out with a smile on her face. Such a simple storyline, but all the ingredients for it to be a great one were there. An underutilized talent, an unstoppable monster, a little girl's dream, a chase for a first ever singles championship. Chad then has this upwards climb where authority figures are telling him no, other wrestlers are in his way, he's losing to Bronson Reed, but if you're watching, you can tell that it's parked in the back. Then comes WrestleMania 40 season and a 6-man gauntlet match with the opportunity to face Gunther at the show of shows. The final two are Gable and Sami Zayn, where Zayn with a quick roll through gets the best of his opponent. Now let's be real for a second, this was Gable's story to finish, but I think the optimists in us were hoping that this was just a little bit more, what was everyone saying in 2023, adversity before he wins the chip. He then goes on to become Sami's trainer, essentially wanting to help him dethrone Gunther, and we find out that he sees a lot of himself in Sami Zayn. It's retconned as Gable understanding that Sami also has a family. Sami goes on to win, and now for Chad, you're wondering how do they pick this up again. After this, they turn him heel, he tortures Otis to hell and back, loses at King and Queen of the Ring, then loses again at Clash at the Castle. The same night, Otis bites back the Wyatt 6 debut and they leave him laying. He then goes on to bring in the Creeds and do the whole Americano thing, and by this point it was too little too late. The momentum had fizzled out when it probably should have happened in Philly. Now they've been given a second chance, not through any long-term planning but by accident. He's going on this redemption story, seeing the error of his ways against the luchadors and people who he took his frustrations out on. If they're smart, this time they won't let the momentum die, and at SummerSlam 2026 they'll crown him. Now the ball's in their court.
I suggest everybody that ever wronged Drew McIntyre
sleeps with one eye open.
Drew McIntyre's 2024 really showed where he belongs in WWE. Among the top of the card, a man that should be relied on as one of the guys. The time he put into refining his character on and off screen was exceptional. 2024 Drew McIntyre is known for preying on CM Punk's downfall. A rivalry that was a happy accident evolved into a highly personal blood feud over essentially a Dollarama bracelet. Think about how great that was. Now take a hard left and think of a group of Samoan men that have absolutely terrorized the roster. A roster that's fallen to their strength in numbers over and over and over again. And one of the very first people to learn that was Drew McIntyre himself, courtesy of Jey Uso. Then, in what could have been possibly the biggest moment of his career on home turf, yet again, it's a Samoan screwjob. Roman, Solo, Jimmy, Jay, non-Samoan but honorary Samoan Sammy, hell, even Lance at one point. Drew had so many issues with the bloodline that they were the ones that set him ablaze in the first place. They were the ones that made him what he was. The moral compass of WWE, someone who, yes, you can classify as a bad guy, but he's not entirely wrong about his reasoning for being as twisted as he is. Now, with how interconnected all of WrestleMania 40 was to the bloodline story, a natural conclusion was to work in reverse and him find his way back to the guy in charge of putting these hits out. This as the Bloodline Hunter. Following his rivalry with Punk, Drew returns to take out both Jey Uso and Sami Zayn on Raw. They run a vignette where he brings up that he's been screwed at the finish line every time, and seeing CM Punk with Roman, Jimmy, Jay, and Sami made his blood boil. He hates the fact that everyone sold out for nothing. I'm paraphrasing here, but everyone knows who Roman truly is, and they blindly follow this guy, and they don't understand that they could be dropped like a bad habit at any moment. It's all very well connected for them to pick up if you actually look at it going into 2025. Drew hates Roman because he started this whole thing, also because he teamed up with Punk. Seth Rollins hates Punk because he also hates Roman. He's caught in this moral dilemma where he refuses to be the fifth man at War Games because he'd be going back on his word. He'd be helping Roman, and why do that after he lost everything to do the exact opposite in Philadelphia? Now, as you can imagine, he's also stuck up for Cody time and time again. Look what Cody's doing. Cody Rhodes ended up committing the biggest sin in teaming up with the very man he wanted to take out, and that makes Kevin Owens very angry. All three of Owens, Rollins, and McIntyre are feeling the same thing. They all feel as though they put their body on the line only for no one to understand what's going on. There's a great way to crumple up all these stories and have them connect back to each other. They all feel as though they're giving themselves up for people who don't reciprocate. Drew on SmackDown mentions Clash at the Castle and how Solo cost him the title and caused his family suffering, admitting that yes, he would go after Solo, but he respects that he's the only one that's actually stood up to Roman. On the Raw and Netflix debut, a show where seemingly everything unraveled, Jey Uso scores a win over McIntyre, and that was the beginning of the end. WWE didn't really know what they wanted to do for WrestleMania 41, and their lack of readiness squashed that storyline right then and there. The obvious endgame was Drew and Roman. They have their Royal Rumble stare down entering back to back, only for Wipe a Man to swoop in, eliminate McIntyre, and the Bloodline Hunter be nothing more than a what if.
Thank God for the new day!
We all know that for a large chunk of their history, this company has not cared about tag team wrestling, but for those extremes where it does go well, it goes very well. A lot of teams came and went through the 2010s, but the two pillars were the Usos and the New Day, the latter that formed in 2014. Over the years, when you have three guys who the fans come to learn are as tight-knit as they are, you only get one chance of doing a breakup storyline or something breakup adjacent, because you, through sheer tenure, have built something that deserves a meaningful end. Big E got injured in 2022 and then slowly started shifting focus to becoming a member of the broadcast team, which left the other two, and they weren't anything special as we got to 2024. Yeah, some of their shine had worn off, but it wouldn't take a lot to heat them back up again. We picked things up in the summer where Karrion Kross is trying to convince Xavier Woods that the New Day is essentially dead, and he's the only one who refuses to admit it. Kofi's only holding him back and nothing else. They have issues with the Final Testament, so Odyssey Jones is brought in to be the clear Big E replacement, and before that can even gain traction, he's let go. By year's end, they keep teasing that the end is here. Woods and Kingston are not seeing eye to eye, particularly because of Kofi overstepping his boundaries and babying Woods. They eat loss after loss. Now it's all about how this implosion actually happens. So naturally, we get the perfect setup, their 10-year anniversary celebration on Raw. As we've seen, these segments can end in disaster, but they take the opposite route and swerve everyone. Just as it looks like things are about to end, out comes Big E, and the way in which they torch this dude is genuinely fantastic. They make you feel for him. He brings up all the lows that the three men have shared and how crucial their brotherhood is. Now, until he's medically cleared, he wants to serve as their manager, and the other two don't accept. They feel abandoned, and poor Big E just gets slaughtered. They're like, so what, you broke your neck, Edge broke his neck, Austin broke his neck, Angle broke his neck. Big E has become a burden on them. Xavier tells him that he'll never be medically cleared. E is just broken, he wants to hug them, he wants to fix it, but Kofi and Woods don't turn on each other, it's just a fake out, and now it's just them. Who's? They go about this in a great way, not through violence, but by slowly twisting the knife over the course of 10 minutes and really tugging at your heartstrings. They kick out Big E when there was no real tension between them. In fact, they had been doing a story where Xavier was getting paranoid that he's being replaced by Odyssey Jones, but you could give them the benefit of the doubt, hoping it's played off as his absence being the reason for all this dysfunction in the first place. The power of negativity was here, and from this moment, you'd really hope that this blossoms into some all-timer stuff. It got off to such a great start, and for a period of time, it's sustained. They have nuclear heat, but then it falls off a cliff. They start really padding out time until WrestleMania because WWE is clearly zeroed in on the Judgment Day drama, and there's next to nothing of significance that happens after the turn. They're fodder for Raw commercial breaks, going to the upper bowl to speak with one of Kathy Kelly or Jackie Redmond, and by WrestleMania, a mere 4 months later, the momentum was dead. It doesn't help that the division was not good, but after this, they again transition into becoming closer to a comedy act with them in mourning and Xavier's comically large hat. Grayson Waller is with them for a period of time, and like a lot of these stories, the focus, direction, and you people was their demise. Now, they aren't even with the company anymore. Kairi Sane came back to WWE in late 2023 and immediately joined Damage Control, which now consisted of herself, Bayley, Dakota Kai, Asuka, and Io Sky. Everything went pretty okay. Bayley broke out in 2024, Io got over as well, and now we were down to 4. In 2025, Sane suffered a torn thumb ligament, and in that time, Dakota Kai was released. Now we were down to 3. While Sane's away, the group just kind of splits up silently because Asuka is also on the shelf. They circle back around to this in the summer of 2025, where the Kabuki Warriors reunite, and now they want to do nothing more than have Io Sky by their side and get the band back together. This is all while her and Rhea Ripley have been going at it for basically the whole year. While the group's been split, Io's character has matured and she wants to do this all on her own, and the other two are repeatedly asking to be in her corner, but it's thanks but no thanks. All the while, everyone's still best buddies. Rhea steps in and it's the story where like, oh, Rhea can help you but we can't. Asuka gets very angry, she's very defensive, and Kairi, without saying much, you're led to believe understands this whole thing. She understands that it's not a big deal, but at the same time doesn't want to hurt either side. Nice, clean, and conflicted in the middle. Asuka is the senpai, and Kairi believes that she's the reason that they're all here, that you have to listen to the elder. They spend the month of August telling the story of Io and Rhea becoming close, and since Sky is good with getting Rhea's help, Asuka doesn't like that. Kairi doesn't want to listen to Asuka, she does not want to follow her orders when the turn eventually happens, and now, every time Kairi tries to express herself to anyone, we hear this. Kairi! So Sane blindly follows Asuka whenever she snaps her fingers. It starts verbally as a "hey Kairi, let's go," and it evolves into "hey Kairi, if you don't get over here, you're gonna get it." She's being abused over and over, and the natural conclusion is for her to make her own choice, stand up to the bully, finally come to her senses, and be independent. It's been months of this, but everything's okay if you have a conclusion. This does not. WWE released Sane in April of 2026, and we never got her breakout moment. Asuka and Io happens at Backlash, where it ends with an emotional hug between the two of them. Someone glaringly obvious is missing here. That would have made Asuka's friendly gesture towards Io an even better visual. Now we're a couple examples deep, and as you can see, spending months and months and months conditioning your audience to believe that there's a payoff and doing something like this is completely ridiculous.
I am Ron Killings. I am the truth.
On a lot of TV shows, there's the great comedic relief character who always has everything jumbled around the opposite way. You can rely on them to always breed hilarity into the most serious of situations and put a smile on your face. But when you take that character who for years has been the funny sideshow and now they get their own arc, it can be something special. After all, everyone has a story. R-Truth for 15 years had been WWE's token funny guy, the one who was a few fries short of a Happy Meal, climbing ladders in Royal Rumble matches, confusing DIY with DX, calling John Cena his childhood hero despite being 5 years older than him. He seemed like he'd be a WWE lifer. In 2025, you had a storyline with John Cena that was just extra fluff when there was in fact a story to tell, contrasting someone who has lost everything that made them what they were, then a 53-year-old who's absolutely rattled that this perfect man could be so evil. If anything, at worst, it could have been one piece to a bigger puzzle that was the catalyst to bring back the true John Cena. That did not happen. It was a nothing rivalry that capped off with an even more nothing 4-minute comedy match. On June 1st, 2025, R-Truth announced that he had been released by WWE. The company chose not to re-up his contract, and the tidal wave that followed was a type of momentum that you must make the most out of. Social media, fans, wrestlers alike dumbfounded that this could happen. They were forced to bring him back because the backlash was just too much. The "We Want Truth" chants were too piercing to ignore. So, just 1 week after his release, he's the deciding factor of the Money in the Bank main event. The following Monday Night Raw, he outlines to the fans that their voice matters. They listened, they felt, and they understood. The fans wanted truth, and they got truth, but R-Truth is back for himself too. We all love R-Truth, and then he kind of spins into the downsides of the character. That he's too nice, he's too forgiving, he feels different, he feels alive. To the people who think he's a sideshow and a gimmick, a statement that's met by a collective no from the fans, he goes on to cut his iconic dreadlocks and announce that the truth has set him free. He is Ron Killings. At that moment, he shed skin and it felt like a career rejuvenation. After all, he had been a main eventer in TNA, but with all this momentum and emotional investment behind him, it's the failed follow-up. He was involved in the Punk and Cena rivalry where they did a callback to 2011. They don't explore anything else and they move him into a program with Aleister Black, one of these characters that helps people see who they truly are. After all, he did just say that he wants respect put on his name. Who better to dive deep into that than Black, trying to shake out what truth really feels. With some cinematic, darkly lit segments, deeply personal promos, and maybe even a trip down memory lane, this really could have been a deep exploration of where he's been and where he wants to be. But they hit the panic button, they were non-committal, he regressed into the same old tried and true character after they captured lightning in a bottle. Rather than continuing with him being more cerebral, he had no character development, and by the time we got to Montreal post SummerSlam, there he was joking it up with John Cena. And this is one of the overarching problems, doing things for clickbait, shock value, and social media, and then just hanging the momentum out to dry. Fatu! This one is short and sweet. Jacob Fatu is scheduled to take on Drew McIntyre in a WWE Championship #1 contenders match. Fatu had a dental procedure done in real life and was not cleared to wrestle, so a mystery attacker takes him out in mid-October, and he's gone all the way until January of the following year. After 4 months away, with Jacob being as big of a monster as he is, you would think that this investigation would be led by Fatu himself looking to get to the root of the problem, but they didn't conclude this in any definitive way. Nick Aldis implies that it was Drew McIntyre, but nothing concrete ever comes of it.
This is what happens when you with the final boss!
The final boss in 2024, for the short time we got him, was absolutely awesome. He came in to swoop away Cody's main event, but the fans didn't let it slide, and the resulting magic was Dwayne Johnson at his absolute best in the confines of a WWE environment. WrestleMania came and went, and a lot of why it was as memorable as it was because of what he did. Now is where a string of strange, disconnected appearances begin, the strange adventures of the final boss. The night after WrestleMania, he has this weird title trade-off with Cody where he wants to try on the championship. The crowd is chanting this is awkward, but he delivers the warning shot. He tells the fans that he's going to go away for a while, but he will be back. Now you wait for the next chapter because logically there's at least 2 stories left to tell, and you would have assumed that by now at least one of them would be done and dusted. There's the story with Cody one-on-one that never was, and then the whole remainder of the Bloodline saga because he did acknowledge Roman and they formally said he was a part of things. He shows up at the end of Bad Blood, a show where they sacrificed a very deserving Drew McIntyre and CM Punk Hell in a Cell main event, only for Roman and Cody to wrestle Solo and Jacob. This off the heels of the Summer of Solo, an entire 3 months dedicated to Solo Sikoa becoming the new Teflon Don of the Bloodline, just for Roman Reigns to come back. It seemed like it was well connected and this was part of something bigger. After all, we all know Solo Sikoa should not be cast as a mafia boss. He's the furthest thing from it. He's the funny guy. So the question is he carrying out someone else's orders? The Rock shows up in the closing moments of Bad Blood, counts to 3, slits his throat, and the show comes to a close. If you don't understand, just look at what's right in front of him. He hates Cody already, and now seeing him team with Roman would probably make him hate both of them. This was back when WWE hadn't gotten into this bad habit and the little subtleties actually mattered, further fueled by The Rock telling people that there is a purpose to this. LA we go for the premiere of Raw on Netflix, where either the fans took crazy pills or Rock has a severe case of Samoan amnesia. He's all of a sudden best friends with Cody, and in the moment, if you wanted to say that this was a tactical way to get Rhodes to let his guard down, then sure, but as we all know now, this made no sense. They surgically destroyed everything they spent TV time building, and let's also not forget about him putting the Ula Fala over Roman's neck, also squashing that storyline. This puts both potential matches to bed in one fell swoop, with Rock seemingly bowing out from the WrestleMania 41 build altogether, only to return a few weeks later and give Cody the option to sell his soul.
I am going to ruin wrestling.
It's only fitting to end with the most egregious one of them all, the perfect tease to absolutely nowhere. This offer The Rock lays out for Cody is accepted by John Cena, which on its own is massive. When you turn someone who despite everything you have refused to, and then the other element is this is his final year, the pinpoint precision in mapping out the end goal is of the utmost importance. It is imperative for you to know what you're going to do after this moment. John Cena turns heel in a plot twist moment for the ages. The show ends with Rock, Cena, and Travis Scott seemingly a new Hollywood faction. Everyone was talking about it, and it looked like John Cena's final year was on a rocket ship trajectory. In isolation as a turn, excellent. Not a wasted moment, but the WWE doesn't go out of business after Elimination Chamber, and the show does go on. The Rock then, plain and simple, disappears. He has not been seen since this day in Toronto, which if we're being honest is part of the problem, but not the entire problem with John Cena's retirement year. They dig themselves into this deep hole, teasing that The Rock, Travis Scott, and Cena are aligned, knowing that he wouldn't be involved moving further. They did it solely to create a viral moment. Their partnership is explained in the most measly way possible. But there are also other elements in this run that are completely ditched. Him doubting himself on the January 6th Raw, the You Can't Wrestle beat heading into WrestleMania 41, at Backlash where he seems to be coming to his senses, summer of 2025 when he said he wanted to leave with the championship so the fans don't forget about him, only to show up on the next SmackDown and make zero mention of the championship he just lost. All these teases just to accomplish a whole wad of nothing. Now, as you can see, this is a problem. But wait, stick with me here, because there's more. First off, the CEO and president of the company is quite literally lying about storylines that everyone else has said were going the other way. Nick Khan came out and said that the tag team match we ended up getting as the WrestleMania 40 Night 1 main event was the plan all along. This would have been news to every wrestling fan if basically all parties involved didn't say this was a pivot. Also, if there wasn't a 1 hour deep dive documentary suggesting the contrary. Secondly, this video takes a look at a few examples of failed follow-ups, but there are many more, from Bayley's split personality to Jessica Carr and Becky having problems to one-offs where wrestlers take digs at management. I also have to mention bungling highly anticipated stories like Randy and Cody, a rivalry that wrote itself with 20 years of history only to have Ari Emanuel add in Pat McAfee, to then use WrestleMania as a huge reset button to get us back to square one, erase all happenings that took place, and leave us with Cody and Randy mano a mano like it should have been the whole time. Lastly, the countless teases for upcoming matches over and over and over and over, only not to get them. Here's the thing though, I think everyone's going to agree we want this to be good. No one wants to be talking about how you just fumble repeatedly. Once or twice, everyone's going to understand that. But over and over, it becomes exhausting to the point you just get conditioned to be indifferent. You don't really trust them to do things properly. This is something people come to escape and sink their teeth into the storylines and character arcs. And when they're ditched, the payoff is not there, or they do something epic only to underdeliver. It's very frustrating. Anyways, with that being said, that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching.